what I'm seeing in the news right now, people reacting pretty strongly to people like Amber Rose, who got up there. She's a rapper in her own right. She's, I think, best known for being Kanye West's ex-girlfriend. She's got 24 million followers on Instagram. She is of mixed race, which is relevant to her appearance at this RNC because she got up there and talked about how she used to hate Donald Trump, thinking he was a racist, and then rethought it. I'm going to get your reaction to her first. SOT 25.
And I believe the left-wing propaganda that Donald Trump was a racist. My father said, "No, he's not, Amber. What are you talking about?" And when I insisted, he said, "Prove it." So to prove my father wrong, I did my research and looked into all things Donald Trump. I realized Donald Trump and his supporters don't care if you're black, white, gay, or straight. It's all love. So I let go of my fear of judgment, of being misunderstood, of getting attacked by the left, and I put the red hat on too. Thank you. I want to thank my father, who's in the audience tonight, for opening my eyes. He served over 20 years in the U.S. military. Thank you for your service, Dad.
Okay, so Hogan, what did you make of it? Because I've seen Van Jones say this was very effective for the Republicans and scares him as a Democrat. But then I've seen commentators like the Daily Wire's Matt Walsh saying, why would you have, he called her, I think, a slut, like that up there at the Republican convention?
Well, look, first things first. When she came into the hall, there were a lot of people around me who said, now, who is this? They had no idea, despite her 25 million followers, as you just pointed out. Still,
to be honest, same.
Yeah, it's just a million more than me, so that's fine. But listen, she was so dynamic in her conversation with the people in that hall because, like so many out there now, she was on the side of hating Donald Trump. And if there's one thing Donald Trump loves more than a day one supporter, it's a convert. He loves the convert because he can tell that story, and putting her up there was so savvy politically. But I'll tell you, some of the biggest applause lines of the night came from her when she was talking about her switch and being tested by her own father, pushing her to actually defend her position. She couldn't do it. And as she went down the rabbit hole and started figuring out what Donald Trump was about, she realized the commentary from the left, the accusations, didn't have any merit at all. And it was a really interesting conversation to have in that hall because, as you know, that doesn't happen much on the Republican side to see someone like that. And while the Matt Walshes and others are offended by it, and I get a lot of the opposition to it, Donald Trump will never, he does it now, but will never have more political capital, I think, than he does right now. And working to use that to try and broaden out that tent and get voices on his side that he hasn't had before, that the Republican Party hasn't had before, I think is really savvy.
Van Jones, the quote was something to the effect of, she's a bunker buster for the Democrats. That's what he said about her. I'm trying to find the exact language, David, but he was saying that she's a threat because she's appealing to disaffected Democrats who are not in love with Joe Biden and still might be flirting with, I like Trump, but I'm afraid to say it.
Right. So having been responsible for conventions in the past, I think sometimes they all seem big in the moment, the speeches. And then the question is there any lingering? I always look at it as, is somebody going to vote or behave differently based on an event? In this case, a convention speech. So I think it was a smart pick. I think generally politicians don't break through on social media because most people are going to witness the Republican convention, at least up until Thursday night, through podcasts, through social media, through TikTok and Instagram. So if someone like that is now going to be posting frequently between now and the election day and both messaging, that can be effective. So I think, that was always our challenge in the conventions I was part of is, obviously the networks want to cover the big names, but it's the real people, particularly when it's somebody who surprises people. Like, I'm surprised that person's at the Republican convention. I'm surprised that person's at the Democratic convention. And to Hogan's point about growth, I mean, that's necessary. Megyn, you and I talked a lot back in 2016. Donald Trump won that in kind of a black swan event, but he won it with less than 47% of the vote. Obviously, a terrible 18 for the Republican Party. He lost in 20, again, not getting over 47% of the vote, and a bad 22 that he was in part responsible for. So I think the question is, no, I don't think J.D. Vance is a selection that suggests he's focused on growth, but that has to be where it is. And his poll standing now is stronger than we've seen in the last two elections because there are polls, they could be wrong, but he's at 47, 48, 49 as opposed to 45, 46. So just speaking as a practitioner, particularly when you have some wins behind your back, and I agree with Hogan that he does, that's the moment when you want to capitalize and give people a permission structure. Because, this race, my guess is will tighten. We'll talk about whether it's Harris or Biden or somebody else. I don't think it'll stay this wide, but Trump has a real lead right now. It's the most significant concern, I think, for Democrats in a presidential race since 1988 to caucus George H.W. Bush going way back. So Trump should do everything he can right now to solidify his gains. There's no question one of his strengths right now is with Black voters, particularly men. He's over 20% in most polls. Hispanic voters, he's over 40 in some. Young voters doing better. What's interesting about that is, of course, he's outperforming Republican candidates pretty dramatically. Biden's underperforming Democratic candidates pretty dramatically. So I think for Trump, he's probably most focused on locking in some of those gains with younger voters and voters of color, but probably wants to see some of that transfer to his party as well in the weeks to come.
Frank Luntz, longtime focus group runner, who's on Fox News a bunch of times, and now he's been everywhere. But he makes his living by polling groups of voters and having them react live to various events. He does both. And he just sent out a post on X, which struck me. He writes, last night, voters saw a Republican Party that they and I have never seen before. A stage filled with hardworking taxpayers, African Americans, working women, union members, and delegates dancing in the aisles. Speeches bashing corporate America and the status quo. We witnessed the realignment of American politics, Trump style. Hashtag GOP convention. Hogan, I think he's exactly right. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary to see those groups as described at the Republican Party versus just 4 to 8 years ago. Well, I guess it would have to be 8 years ago.
Yeah, there's no question. And even the rhetoric Donald Trump had back in 2016 about people coming across the southern border, so many Republicans in the establishment said it's going to kill him with Hispanics. But we saw gains with Donald Trump over someone like Mitt Romney or even George W. Bush. And now it's gotten even bigger. People are looking at Donald Trump and realizing, regardless of your race, religion, color, or creed, the policies are what matters. And when you see exorbitant prices for gas and for groceries, that happened because we had a change and a shift in economic policy from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. And when you start to see so many different faces and so many different attitudes and beliefs show up at a Republican convention, you realize what Donald Trump has done to build out and broaden out that tent. We were joking. I had some friends we were talking about backstage that we'd never seen anything like this before at a Republican convention. And that's true. I don't think anyone could have done it except for Donald Trump. But he's willing to go into these places. We've seen how many campaign stops in areas that no Republican would dare trod. Never would you see that before. And he goes right in there. And people love him and people hug him. But David's right, too. What does that mean ultimately for getting out the vote, getting those people to turn out to the polls? Because all of this stuff, and Donald Trump has had a string of incredible victories. The Republican Party has had a news cycle like I've never seen in my 25 years in politics. So I'm just waiting for some shoe to drop at this point, if I'm being honest. But it continues to kind of snowball. It's that Haley Barbour thing, the good get better and the bad gets worse. The good is getting better right now for Donald Trump. And to showcase everything after an assassination attempt, you see a big victory in court. Now we're at this convention. The first night was a home run. And you mentioned single moms who couldn't make ends meet, a person on fixed income, and he was having trouble with the prices. Amber Rose, you had the head of the Teamsters Union, for heaven's sakes, coming here and talking directly to Republican voters. You're seeing a shift. It really has been impressive.
Let's play that because the Teamsters president showed up at the Republican National Convention, and it was very interesting to listen to him talk about Trump. He had the old, whether you like him or not, kind of precursors to his remarks, but he landed it. It was kind of fun to watch Trump's reaction to. Watch 24.
No other nominee in the race would have invited the Teamsters into this arena. Now, you can have whatever opinion you want, but one thing is clear. President Trump is a candidate who is not afraid of hearing from new, loud, and often critical voices. And I think we all can agree, whether people like him or they don't like him, in light of what happened to him on Saturday, he has proven to be one tough SOB.
And then Trump smiled after he said that last part. David, what did you make as a Democrat of the Teamsters president showing up at the RNC?
Well, again, it's a moment. And I think one question will be, what does the Trump campaign do with that? Are they going to advertise using those words? Are they going to try and reach union members, Teamsters, and others? We'll see. That is going to be an important battle. I think the service unions, Democrats still dominate in terms of electoral performance. Some of the building trades unions, it's more competitive. And so Biden's numbers right now, as challenged as they are being held up in part because he's doing really well with seniors, including, white seniors, middle-aged voters, including a lot of union members. So that's been a place where you've not seen the erosion that we've seen amongst younger voters and some voters of color. Although, there's plenty of union voters who are voters of color. And that's going to require a lot of sophisticated data analysis to see what's happening there.
Do you owe back taxes? Pandemic relief is now over. Along with hiring thousands of new agents and field officers, the IRS has kicked off 2024 by sending over 5 million pay-up letters to those who have unfiled tax returns or balances owed. Don't waive your rights and speak with them on your own. That's scary. It usually doesn't end well. Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, has saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients, and they can help you secure the best deal possible. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, they can help you. Whether it's business or personal taxes, even if you have the means to pay, or if you don't, if you're on a fixed income, they can help finally resolve your tax burdens once and for all. Call 1-800-245-6000 for a private, free consultation, or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.